Hello, my name is Teresa, the Artsy sister, and today we're continuing with Saturnastra Lamina. This is chapter 7, Your Father. Uncertain about your next destination, you ride alongside Irving as you trailed the coast. The Bashmago was not too keen on packing any supplies. If it wasn't for the fairy knowledge of all of the books and rivers, your Irving would have starved to death. Irving has been forced to fish or hunt for his meals on a daily basis. He's already used to this, and he can handle the boat with the dexterity of a desperate man that cannot afford to waste any arrows. Even while living at the tower, he always practiced his short bow. He would also fish once a day. Considering how things turned out, it was a good thing he kept up with his survival skills. After going by the coast for a week, the tower is no longer visible. This day, the Bashmago stops you and asks, "Where are we going?" "I don't know. I thought that learning magic would be easy as picking a school, a teacher, or whatever and just sticking with it. Now I'm beginning to fear I may have to converse with my father directly," you say sadly. Smiling sadly, the Bashmago says, "It is not Irving's fault that he is lost, and he started his education a bit too late, and he did the best he could, but the sword of his intellect has already rusted." "Oh, don't you sound fancy and refined," you say sarcastically. "Well, I had poetry, philosophy, and other fine arts beaten into my memory before I learned how to walk," said the Bashmago proudly. "Oh, good for you. I am glad to see that it all worked out for you in the end," you commented shockingly. "And knock it off, you two," says Irving. "You're starting to sound like my parents with your constant arguing." Laughing, you say, "Don't fight in front of the baby." "Ha ha, very funny," says the Bashmago, fading away. Irving says while gazing at the beach, "I don't blame you for what happened. I did not fit into the school anyway. I'm just in a bit of an impasse, and I always wanted to make you a mage to help me with my battles, but now I'm beginning to think that it's no longer an option," you say sadly. "I am sorry that I am so weak and useless," said Irving, lowering his head. "It's okay, some things cannot be helped, and I'm not so strong myself, and yet there are many others who were stronger than me who died in my stead while I remained." You comment while looking at the sunset. Irving's ghost bleeds as he turns around to check on the group's progress. The god is always running on ahead while making certain the distance between himself and Irving doesn't grow too much. But you can see and hear dead people, so it's fine. They're not all really gone," says Irving, trying to cheer you up. "It's not that simple, and it is not as if they pass away. Rather, it is like they never existed," you say, frowning. "I don't understand what you're saying," says Irving. "Nor do you have to, and if you ever do come to understand, you will be just another madman jumping at shadows that no longer exist," you say, ending the conversation. Irving is quiet for some time, and the mere mention of jumping at shadows is making him remember something about his own man. His father, too, used to jump at shadows every once in a while when he was really, really drunk, and Irving never thought much of it at the time. However, since his close encounter in the ocean, he has been looking at his father in a new light. The very night you decide to go see your own father, and you ponder on the easiest route to his study. In the end, you dig a hole in the ground, and every so often you collapse the ground in the tunnel to keep others from following behind, and you eventually cave your way into the cemetery. The sky above has the eternal full moon that delivers no light, and there is a dead tree with an owl hooting inside of it, and you go to this hollow tree and look carefully, and you eventually feel a thin string. You use it to find your way back to your father's study. The house has not changed one bit. It still maintains its if you don't know what feel to it. And the fairies manifest around you, and you eventually visit the door to his study. You open it and find him gazing at his crystals. Fearing that he will be too deep into his magical trance, you ask in a trembling voice, "Dad?" "Yes, what is it, Lamina?" says your father without turning around. "I need to know all the paths of magic," you tell him. He then says, "I am busy, and you can just explain to me why you need to know. And I was under the impression you had neither the talent nor the interest in my talent." "Well, there's this kid Irving, and I took him to the tower to learn magic, and he was bad at it. And he does have some power, but he can't seem to use it or even feel it. And it is like he is magically handicapped or something," you say sadly. "When did he start school?" asks your father. "Well, he was 9 or something, and a few years ago I finished teaching him how to read. He was a shepherd before then, you comment. Ah, a shepherd, you say. Has he ever gone to temple, he asks. No, he was always too busy with work, you comment. Is he pure of heart, he asks. Pure of heart, how, you ask, confused. Your father thinks for a moment and then he says, have your fairies ever shown an interest in him? Can he see or hear them? You think for a moment and then say, no, but he can see dead people. Anyone who spends enough time with spirits will eventually see them, and that does not make him special, he says, sighing. If you say so, you say without much enthusiasm, and if your father can help Irving, then you will be forced to find yourself a new mage. Your father is silent for a moment as if in this thought or in his mind or in a trance, and then he nods before asking, am I to get he is a superstitious fellow? No more so than the average farmer, you muse. And gathering his red robes around him, your father rises from his seat, and he goes to one of the cabinets and tables and takes out a rabbit's foot, and he asks, are you familiar with charms? Yes, I know good luck charms. And you answer holding on to the rabbit's foot, and you seem a bit uncertain as to where he's going with all of this. What I am about to explain to you must remain between you and me, and if you ever explain this to your charms, this magic charm that I am about to teach you how to use will lose all its effect, he says, sitting down before me. And when used properly, charms can serve as a magical shortcut to cast spells, and charms can only be used by people with a high degree of superstition. They lose their power should these people ever be presented with a facts or truths that contradict that superstition. Wait, I don't understand, you say, confused. Perhaps a demonstration is in order, he says, standing up and holding out the rabbit's foot, and he aims at a mirror, he says, lucky, lucky green, and asks whether the rabbit's foot emits a pale green fire, and then he says, I started my magical studies with fey magic, meaning that one day a fairy creature came to me and offered me a magical powers in exchange for affinity. And since I started with fey magic, the fairy powers did not work in the city. And one day some bastards tried to mug me, and all I had on me was a lucky rabbit's foot I had bought from a wandering merchant. And I had bought it because my future side had told me that it was going to be useful. And when the thief confronted me, I knew that by saying the words lucky, lucky green, the rabbit's foot was going to shoot green fire. How or why, it does not make logical sense. And that is the beauty of charms. One does not need to understand them in order to make them work. There is also something personal about charms, and this charm will only work for me, and you need to make your little shepherd for believing his own charms, and I suggest you start with one at a time. Also, charms need to be recharged via a magic ritual. He then hands you a small book filled with illustrations on charms and the short magic ritual required to recharge them, and looking sadly, you ask, don't you have anything truly useful? Like a story based on true events, he says, giving a wry smile. And the entire story that he had just told you was apparently made up, though it did get the point across as to how charms work. It is a mere fact that he believes that the entire farce to be true that gives his rabbit foot strength. And he asks, I'm just working what you offer me, pumpkin. Now run along and play, Daddy's busy. On your way back, you look through all of the charms, and each one listed a famous owner of the charm and how he used it and what he believed in. And this gives you a good idea as to how to present the charm to Irving. And you return the following morning to camp, and Irving and the Bashmago have been circling around the hole for quite some time. And the Bashmago apparently does not believe that the children's ghost when they tell him that you dug a hole into the ground to tunnel your way back home. When you pop your head out of the ground, the Bashmago turns pale as death, which is odd indeed considering that he is already dead. Some color returns to his face, and then he asks, so how was your trip back home, and why do you have to tunnel? Couldn't you have flown there, or do you hail from the Dwarven kingdoms? Dwarves don't live on the ground by choice, you comment, frowning. You take some time to enter the beach and wipe all of the dirt and grime off you, and you then add some dirt to seal the patch of the ground for good, and to make sure that no one else can follow your trail. And Irving asks, so did you see your family? Were they happy to see you? Ah, Petit Pooh, Mommy's actually somewhere in the continent doing some pointless nonsense. As for that, he's always busy with his gem appraisals, and the point is that he did not have a lot of time to offer me, and he did give me an answer to a little dilemma, you comment, pointing at Irving. Dilemma? What's a dilemma? Asked Irving, looking confused. Never mind, you show him a book of charms. See, this book shows magical artifacts that can be used to cast magic pretty easily. And he suggests that you start with one, and then one that you think is powerful, and then move on to the rest if it pleases you. Evan took the book and he started looking through it, and he commented, "These are illustrations are pretty lifelike." And then he holds up the book to point at the rabbit's foot. It really does look like a rabbit's foot. And the Bashmago looks at the book with skepticism, and he asks, "What sort of rune script is it?" "It is written with rongo glyphs," you say dryly, and you add, "There's no need to teach Irving the glyphs because the power comes from the items and how he chooses to use them. The power he can draw from depends on his creativity and imagination." "Magic has nothing to do with the imagination," says the Bashmago, frowning, and he adds, "And rongo sounds like a made up language, and the scripts look like shout doodles." "The catalog was made by a 5-year-old, but the information is still accurate. It is the most accurate compilation of items with powerful magical properties," you say, smiling proudly. Irving is not listening to the conversation. He is sitting with his coat looking through the illustrated book. And the noon breeze carries with it the heat of the ocean, and it is a good thing that you were exiled in the middle of summer, and it would have been problematic to travel by the side of the beach in the middle of winter. And since your group is so far north, from time to time winter storms come from the other continent, blanketing the beaches with snow. "I don't know this father of yours or his powers, and for all we know he could have simply given you a random book to be rid of you for good," says Irving, gritting. "Just because my father does not want to spend any time with me does not mean he's a bad father. There are lots of bad fathers who spend all their time with their children just to torture them on a daily basis. And I prefer an absentee father over a bad one. And besides, he has no choice in the matter, and when he chose the path of magic, he knew he had to dedicate his entire existence into being the best wizard that there ever was," you say, raising your voice. And at this point, everyone intervenes and says, "Stop it already, Bashmagos, and you're lucky Lamina is such a good girl, and any other person would have gotten rid of you for good." And the Bashmago turns to dust, and he begins to ponder the possibility that maybe, just maybe, living with him was so intolerable that his family may have offed him. And shaking your head sadly, you say, if I did not like arguing with you, I would simply ignore you." "My apologies," said the Bashmagos, bowing. The night falls, and with it the tide rises, and everyone is forced to put out the tent closer to the nearby forest, and he has laid traps nearby to catch food, and so far he has caught only a bunny. And after eating the meager meal, he milks his goat and he drinks her milk before going to bed, and he sleeps peacefully with a smaller goat beside him, keeping him warm. And you amuse yourself for some time watching Irving sleep. And your species is rotten when the Bashmago beckons you outside, and sensing that he wanted to continue the conversation from before, you give the Bashmagos an ultimatum. "Call me again on my nonsense in front of Irving, and I will bring you back to life to kill you again, and this time more slowly, painfully." "You don't have the power to resurrect the dead," says the Bashmago, chuckling. You shrug your shoulders and then say, "I can't bring all the dead back to life, but I can bring you back to life. You are livelier than the average corpse." "I don't believe you," says the Bashmago. "If you are displeased by the way I run things, we can happily part ways, and I can bury you in a random spot and be rid of you for good. And you will spend the rest of your miserable eternity alone and unwanted," you say, narrowing your eyes. If this is about me questioning your father, then I ask for forgiveness, and I was under the impression you had made him up. You lie so often it is almost impossible for me to tell when you're telling the truth," says the Bashmago solemnly. "You only think that I lie because I'm a girl, and you're under the foolish notion that the dead are lie detector. That does not make a person wiser, and most souls tend to degrade to mere husks of what they used to be after that. And very few had the strength of will or the desire to remain as they once were," you comment sadly. "I think I understand that this is not my place to intervene in the affairs of the living. However, I cannot stand here doing nonsense while you corrupt the boy, filling his head with false hopes and dreams. He should just go back to the goat farm, and you can then free yourself to find you someone that can actually learn magic," says the Bashmago. "You are right. Everyone is just a herder, but I want to help him, and I want to help him. And because no one else will, you say earnestly, and you then add in a deeper voice, I can turn into a void if it will give more credibility, if it will make me more credible in your eyes. And you then make your whole voice super high-pitched. And though frankly I prefer the form of a sweet little girl. If that were true, then maybe you would not wear the skins of a Sphynx all the time," you commented, Bashmagos. You roll your eyes and you choose to ignore all of his attempts to continue speaking, and you change your focus to the playful happening of your fairies and the ghost children by the sea, and the luminescence over the water. It's quite an interesting light show, and the Bashmago disintegrates into tears at the ocean floor. And tonight the Titan moon is a quarter full, and the smaller moons have more prominence, and it is rare to see all of the celestial bodies fully defined. Close to New Year, the northern fairies fly south to warn their sisters of a terrible blizzard, and you get the news 2 weeks before the arrival of the storm, and the Bashmago naturally argues against your sudden abilities to predict the weather, and he also lacks the ability to see and hear the fairies, and he's a stubborn mule, and it is both his gift and his curse. And you decide to travel to one of the nearby port towns to ride out the blizzard, and the nearest town was a pirate stronghold, and it only belonged to the pirates, figuratively speaking, and whenever the lords were rumored to be near, the town cleaned up its act, and the strength unique to the town amused the lords a lot, and when they had nothing better to do, they would give surprise visits, and the town was called Luris, and its leader was of a sketchy descent. And aside from piracy, other locals made their fortune by being highwaymen, and others prefer less dangerous occupation in the form of farming, fishing, and hunting in the woods. And in order to enter the town and not be bothered, you require a safe passage, and you did not notice at the time, however, none of the guards made any motion to halt your movements for obvious reasons. And you guide your group towards a manor that stands in the middle of the town, and a window on the second floor opens, and a maiden wearing an emerald dress appears. And she smiles and waves at you, and you see her figure hurrying from the windows towards the downstairs, and she throws both her portals open, and she comes to you with outstretched arms. And she hugs you and has you. Well, if it isn't my good friend the Sphynx. It has been quite some time, my dear Lady Betty, you say, pushing her back, and you look at her from head to toe in an effort to remember her. And indeed, you did not know one another, and she had arbitrarily chosen to come and greet you as a friend to make the locals seem more at ease. And once inside, Lady Betty throws her entire household in disarray in order to cater to her surprise visitor, and her guests used to surprise visits from the lodge quickly rush to get things in working order, and before the night falls, the horses have been accommodated in the stable, and Irving in the Bashmago, and you have a room of your own. And despite being able to see the fairies, Lady Miss Betty fails to realize that the Bashmago is a revenant, and as of late he has been looking livelier for an undead, and from time to time he would even eat a little, even if whatever he ate turned to dust in the pit of his stomach. And he did this in part to forget that he was no longer alive, and it was slowly starting to become a bit disturbing, and even Irving was starting to worry about him, but he kept his concerns to himself. He figured that nothing worse, aside from being dead, could happen to the Bashmagos. After dinner, Lady Betty takes you to her library to begin her interrogation, and she asks, "From which clan do you hail from?" "None in particular," you answer. "So wait, you were not sent by any of the Magi's or the clan elders?" she asked, somewhat disappointed. "I hate to burst your bubble, but we are merely simple travelers," you answer. And Lady Betty looks at one of her maids who nods in approval, and staring back at you, she asks, "So, do you belong to the boy, then? It is rare to see such a power in a lad, and I would never have guessed that he was a wizard by the looks of him, and he must be strong to command the loyalty of a Sphynx and the fairy folk as well. Sadly, the voice is as novice as most, but I aim to remedy that fact," you say, smiling. "Good luck, and one can hardly cast a decent spell in this town except in the forest or by the docks, and it's become worse and worse over the years," says the Lady Betty more to herself. And then she adds, "And I will provide lodging, but it will come at a price." "I have gold, so how much would it be?" you ask. "I haven't need of gold. I want information," says Lady Betty, smiling coyly. "I think we will go to the inn instead," you say, getting up. "Wait, you rather stay at a dingy inn than my luxurious manor. It won't cost you nothing, really. Just tell me why your fairies can exist in the city, and what power compels them to do so," she asked, getting up. "My fairies are apparently from the unsaintly court, so that is why they do not share the usual limitations of normal fairy. While the saintly court is active in nature, the unsaintly court lives in exile, away from nature," you explain. "I was not aware that fairies had courts or exiles," says Lady Betty, going to her desk, and she begins to jot down everything you said about the fairies. And you continue somewhat resigned. "The problem stems from the unsaintly court's aggressive behavior towards humans, and the unsaintly court also believes that fairies should look to other intelligent beings to harvest affinity, and it's extremely rare for an unsettled fairy to associate with a human. When they do it, it is to help that person on a lofty quest to kill all humans, and for the heretical views, the unsettled court has become an outcast. So the unsettled court is the evil one, and the other one represents the good fairy, said Lady Betty, agreeing with herself. And pouting your lips, you say, my fairies are not evil. They simply represent the minority that sees the world as it is and not as it should be. And they can also be useful if they grow to like a person and they are not bound by the pure of heart rule. A faint smirk appears in your lips, and even you cannot call your fairies good with a straight face. And they were certainly mischievous little imps, and then again their mischief is not your problem, but the problem of everyone else. And Lady Betty Bell welcomes you to her house, and Irving seems a bit uncomfortable in such a luxurious manner, and indeed he is acting like a fish out of water. And the month you spend with Lady Betty proves to be quite distracting, and she intends on getting as much information out of you as possible. And whenever you start trying to teach her, when she has ears listening all over the house, and it's a good thing that Irving distrusts her because of who she is, and because of her open desire to spy on them. Still, information is controlled within the clans, and considering their surroundings, very few humans believe or understand the information that is passed from generation to generation. And over years, much of the truth has been corrupted or has been taken the form of fairy tales. And once snowy day, you pick up your bags and head out with Irving, and halfway out of town, the guards surround your party, and you tell them out of politeness, get out of my way. Our lady has ordered us to keep you from leaving, says one of the guards. Are you willing to die for obeying such a foolhardy command? You ask, narrowing your eyes. The lady knows you do not enjoy trouncing weakness, answered the head guard. I must admit that I am far less murderous than my siblings. Still, I cannot vouch for those that travel with me, you say, gesturing to the unsettled fairies. The fairies roll their eyes and do not seem eager to make things easy for you, and also the Bashram and the children seem inclined to stand back and watch you squirm. And as for Irving, he's too busy shaking inside his spells to comment on the matter, and shaking he says, can we go back to the matter? It's too cold for me to press on. Fine, I will return. However, come spring we will be on our way, you say, annoying. And certainly, Lady Lamina, and still we were asked to detain you for the best interest of your companion, and Lady Betty worries about your little Irving, he says, bowing. And you think a moment, and one of the fairies whispers in your ear, and you nod and say, fine, I will return to the home of that tossing pillock, and good day to you, gentlemen. And on the way back, you resolve to begin Irving's lesson, even with Lady Betty spying on you, and if all goes well, her common sense will make it impossible for her to follow along. And once he said, Irving asked, what does tossing pillock mean? I don't know, the fairy said it was a good insult, so I went with it, and my mother discourages cursing, though she does employ plenty whenever she stomps her toes, and this happens often enough, so I do not have an expansive vocabulary or correlate for language she uses, just answer. And Irving pauses, unable to follow the gist of your conversation, and he proceeds to talk to his coat, which is a bit moody considering the weather, and both are from slightly warmer climates. And Lady Betty welcomes you with open arms. Alright, so let's leave it here. Bye-bye and God bless.